Okay, what are you saying, people, and welcome back to my channel. Now today we're on a weekly forex analysis for you guys. So on the screen are the pairs we'll be looking at today, but make sure you stay to the end of the video because I will be going into depth analysis for each pair and what's happened during this trading week and what could happen during next trading week. So make sure you stay to the end of the video for all of that. But with all that said, let's get straight into the video. First up, we've got Euro USD. Okay, so for Euro USD this week we had a bit of a mixed week. Price was looking quite bullish at the start of the week. We saw some nice bullish momentum going to the upside, breaking through some key levels of structure. However, towards the end of the week we came crashing back down, as you can see, with that bearish momentum. So overall a mixed week, but there's one key thing to take away from this week's trading is that we're still above and holding our key level of resistance and support. As you can see, resistance there twice, third time gave us a big move to the downside. Was again the fourth time, but now it's acting as support. So as long as price stays above this, my bias is to the upside for Euro USD, expecting to see a move into this resistance up here. Again, I'm not sure if that will happen within a week, might take 2, maybe even 3, but I'm expecting to see a push to the upside and just continue this bullish trend for Euro USD as long as we stay above this level from a daily point of view. So again, going into next week, biases to the upside. We do have this trend line as well, which price did break through. However, it's back above now, as you can see. First, second, and third, which was the break, but however we broke back into it. So just treating this price action here as one big false breakout and expecting to see another push to the upside. So for next week, we'll be looking for buys, and I will be targeting this area up here around 1.23200, that resistance. First target will be this resistance here, but if you break through that, then it'll be the highs up there. I will turn my bias to bearish if we do actually break through this trend line and break through that key level of support. So if you do break through it, hold above it as resistance, we'll look to go short on the retest and look for a move to the downside, targeting this key level here on the 4H of prior resistance support, and we'll be acting as support there as well. So we'll change my bias to bearish if we do now go and break through the trend line, break through that support, get a daily close below it, and we'll look for that retest to get on a nice short down to these lows. But as long as that does not happen and we hold these areas, we'll be looking for buys for next week, looking to target first the level there, that prior high, then all the way up there, that key daily level, again around 1.23200. So buys to the upside as long as we hold that level, which we are doing so far. Next, we're going to take a look at USD JPY. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at USD JPY. So for USD JPY, we had a nice push to the upside this week. As you can see, we gained a lot of bullish momentum. I did say last week that we do have this area of support that if we do reject, can look for buys. As you can see, first, second, third test there, and kind of happened midweek, and then we saw a continuation to the upside. And I said if we do get rejection of that, there's a good chance we could just fill in the range and see another push to that resistance there, which actually did break through, but we still got that move to the upside. So for next week, I'm actually interested for a move to the downside for USD JPY. We've got this trend line here in the market, so first, second, this is our third test. I think as long as we reject that trend line, we did have a bit of a false breakout. As you can see, we did spike above and spike back below, so treating that as a bit of a false breakout. But if we do hold come next week underneath that, reject it, looking for those sells, targeting that support there, or potentially this trend line, probably obviously the trend line first, then if you break through that, then the support area just below it. But overall, looking for shorts for next week for USD JPY. If we remain bullish and price starts breaking through this previous high here in the market, so that point there, and continues on, I'll probably leave USD JPY alone, wait for it to settle down, then see if we can get some nice opportunities later on. But if it does hold this trend line there of resistance, we'll be looking for shorts, looking to take this lower back down to that trend line there, and if we break through it, then the support all the way there. But nevertheless, looking for shorts for next week for USD JPY in this area, targeting the trend line first, and then that support around 108,500. And next we've got USD CAD. Okay, so now we've got USD CAD. So for this pair, again, price is still very, very bearish here. It's starting to slow down. Momentum is slowing down, as you can see in the price action. We're picking up speed here, and now we're starting to slow down. But overall, price action is still very bearish from the monthly all the way down to the 4H hourly. We're still pointing to the downside. So difficult to look for buys for USD CAD. If you try and hold it for the long term, maybe some short buys and lower time frames could be good, but overall we are still pointing to the downside for USD CAD. So for next week, we've got this key level of resistance which has formed this week As you can see, we've tested it once, a second time, actually take that across as well, tested it a third time there as resistance as well. So we've got a key resistance there, and we also got a key trend line here in the market. I feel like, because again we do have that bias to the downside for USD CAD, we could be in for some nice selling opportunities if we were to push back into that resistance again for a fourth time. If we do reject it, can look to short it, and again first target will be the trend line, and the next will be the lows all the way down there. So back to the lows and potentially some new lows after that, maybe tapping into 1.2 there as well, because again if we were to have another lower high, there's a good chance, because of how bearish we are, we're going to form another lower low past that recent swing low point there around 1.20150. So biases to the downside. If we do start clearing this level here in the market, then we'll probably push into this resistance up here, and then that could be a nice place to look to short the market as well. But if you do take out that resistance as well, then I think we'll probably turn bullish and probably look for buying opportunities. But for USD CAD for next week, looking for selling opportunities, either at that resistance there, looking for a move back into those lows, the first target being the trend line, or if we break through that as well, then we'll be looking to sell from that resistance, and then again target will be the trend line, and then that support just below. But either way, looking for sales for next week for USD CAD, either that resistance or the second one just above it. Up next is Euro GBP. Sorry to interrupt the video guys, but if you are enjoying the content and you're finding it useful, make sure you go hit the subscribe button down below, and also make sure you drop a like as well. It really does help the channel out. But anyway, back to the video. Okay, so for Euro GBP this week we saw a push to the upside, but again that just turned out to be retraced. As you can see, we had this key level here in the market connecting the dots here. So again, strong support, bit of a false break, strong support there as well. Expecting it to act as resistance, which it did. However, we did false break through it and then came crashing back down, also taking out this structural point there as well. So we are very much bearish here for Euro GBP. This turned out just to be retrace of that impulsive move, and now expecting some more momentum to the downside. So Euro GBP, I'm expecting to see another push to the downside this week. For entries and for possible trades, looking for a move to the upside, so retrace some of that bearish momentum, come tap into this area or near around it. Then we'll be looking to short Euro GBP into some new lows back at around 0.85500. There's a chance that we could be seeing a bigger move all the way down to these lows here and just continue that bearish trend that we've had for Euro GBP for the past few months now. So that potentially could happen, but again that will take probably a couple or maybe 3 weeks for that whole move to play out. So for next week, looking for a move to the upside first, and then from this area we'll look to short it again back into those lows as first target, then some new lows around 0.85500. So waiting for price to come back up to around this level here. Of course, there's a chance that price is, because price is still very, very bearish, it could just take to the downside without me. If that's the case, won't be looking to get involved with Euro GBP. Not really interested in any buys this week, only interested in selling Euro GBP. I want to see a move to the upside first, and then from around that area we'll target the lows around there. Okay, so up next we've got AUD USD. Okay, so now we've got AUD USD. So for this pair, again, not too much happened, as you can see there on the daily chart. Overall price is kind of just still moving sideways. Again, trapped between that 0.77 area of support and that 0.78 area of resistance. So overall, I feel like price is building up for a big move either to the upside or to the downside. Again, not too sure what will happen. We're going to wait to see the break and then see if we can get in on those moves. But right now, price is struggling to break through either the support or the resistance. We tried to break through it just before the week ended, but as you can see, we poked the heads back above that area. So overall, still intact, still holding as support. So for next week, we'll be looking for buys from this area for another push to the upside. We do have this trend line here, which is something to take into account because we are forming some lower highs. So price might want to get rejected before it actually hits that area of resistance, that 0.78 area, and as you could see us coming back down to that support and slowly see price squeeze between that trend line and that support. So we'll take that into account, but overall for next week we'll be looking for buys from around the 0.77 area. We'll be targeting that trend line, and if we do get a break, then that 0.78 resistance, and just seeing if we can get another swing to the upside and just continue the consolidation of price. Not trying to overcomplicate it. If we do see a breakout, then the price is probably going to move to this 0.76 area, which is a key level of support. As you can see, numerous wicks in that area, taking that across. So if you do see a breakout, we'll change my bias and see if I can get involved on the retest of that area of resistance and take that move further to the downside. But right now we're holding above it, so our bias is to the upside for AUD USD. First target will be that trend line up there, and then the resistance 0.78 if we do get a break. Now let's take a look at NZD CAD. Okay, so for NZD CAD this week, overall we had a nice push to the upside. As you can see, we had from this same area of support, price tapped into it. Expecting to see a break last week, however we didn't, and we saw a big push to the upside there. Actually taking out some key levels here in the market, taking out our previous lower high. As you can see, there's our low, lower high, new low. It took out that level, giving us a new high. So we're seeing some bullish intent there. So for NZD CAD for next week, I think we could be seeing it move to the upside. I'm not saying that we're going to get a bullish trend now, or reversal, but I think we could be seeing maybe a bit of a counter move to the upside. Then price might turn bearish again after that. On the daily chart, we've got an important key level running through price. As you can see, if I just highlight this area now, key support here in the market, and I'll take that across. As you can see, nice area of support here once, second time resistance, third time support gave us that big move to the upside, and taking it across one more time. As you can see, support there as well. So if this acts as support there again, we'll be looking to buy NZD CAD from that level. Seeing to get another push to the upside. It does have a lot of value behind it. As you can see, the reactions on the daily are quite big. Overall, kind of still trading in that area. So for next week for NZD CAD, we'll look to see what happens around this area to see if you can reject it, maybe get a double bottom, and we'll be looking for buys targeting this resistance here in the market. And if you break it, probably around that 0.89 area. So buys to the upside, we'll be looking for longs from this area. So you can target that area and then the 0.89 if you get a break. However, if we do get underneath, then there's probably a good chance that price is probably going to turn bearish again and see another move into that support. And then from there, I'll probably look for longs as well. So not really interested in shorts for NZD CAD for next week. Only interested in going long. We'll be going long from this area if I do get some confirmations. But if we do break through it, then the next place will be this support around 0.86400. So biases to the upside for next week. If you do get a break of that support, then yeah, you could look to short NZD CAD on the retest potentially back down to those lows, but we'll be getting interested again for some buys around here. And if you do hold that straight away, then we'll be looking to go long there from Monday from that level, targeting that high there. And then if you break through it, 0.89. Next up, we've got GBP NZD. Okay, so for GBP NZD this week, we saw a nice move to the downside. Price got a big move to the downside, as you can see. We tapped into it last week, and then we saw the continuation in this week. I did say we can be looking for some shorts here if we keep up that rejection. And as you can see, we did see a nice dive to the downside. So price is looking quite bearish now. We're also taking out some key structural levels. As you can see, this was our previous high low in the market, giving us that high. And now we've got a new low. So now we're looking for that new high to give us that move to the downside and give us a new low there as well. So overall, looking for shorts for next week for GBP/NZD. We do have this key level on the 4H, which I think will play a nice role in where price can potentially head to this week. As you can see, I'll take this across. So key support, support, then act as resistance once, twice, big move to the downside. Bit of a false breakout over there, but again acted as resistance, and now we'll be acting as resistance there again. So I think as long as GBP/NZD holds onto this area, maybe you might get a false break of it, but as long as we hold on to it, looking for those shorts around this area, targeting these lows over here. So that prior low, which gave us this big move to the upside, and if you break through that, then the lows all the way down there around 1.92. Again, not expecting price to get there in 1 week, might take 2, but move to the downside next week I will be looking for GBP/NZD. So from this resistance 1.96 into 1.93500, and if you get a break into 1.92, but either way, looking for shorts. Not really interested in longs. If you do spike above here, we'll be waiting to see if we can get a false break and get price back underneath. But if we do and we actually start to hold it, then there's a possibility that price might want to retest, then continue back into that resistance, which could be a nice trade there, but not really too interested in that at the moment in time. So for GBP/NZD, looking for shorts 1.96 into 1.93500, and if you get a break, back into 1.92. Next, we're going to move on to CAD JPY. Okay, so for CAD JPY, as you can see, this week had a nice push to the upside. Price eventually just held onto this support. If we broke through it, then potentially we could have got maybe a move to the downside, not a reversal, but maybe a bigger retracement. But as you can see, it held and we saw a bigger move to the upside. You can see there in the 4H. False breakout, I believe last week, came back to retest it, and we saw a continuation to the upside. So CAD JPY is still very bullish. Can potentially look for some shorts now for CAD JPY because we're coming to a very key area 91, which I have been calling for the past few weeks now. If we go on the weekly time frame and we take this across, you can see we do have this double top area which gave us this big move to the downside, and now we're back at that same area again. So I'm expecting to see a bigger move to the downside now for CAD JPY. We're still very bullish here. The price action is still very overextended, so I do expect to see a move to the downside now for CAD JPY. There is still a possibility we might spike above, create some new highs, a bit of a false move, and then start coming down after that. So do have to watch out for that. So taking that information back down to the 4H, if we do start to see price turn very bullish again, similar to what we had here, start giving us some new highs, probably wait for price action to calm down first, wait for price to start to lose some momentum, start to find some strong resistance, and then maybe you can look to short it. But for me, I'm just interested to see if we can reject this area. We've got this trend line here with 1, 2, now our third test. Maybe if we do one more push to the upside, reject that area again, that will be interesting into short CAD JPY, targeting that prior resistance there, now turn support, and if you get a breakthrough that, back into that daily support around 90. So my bias is the downside for CAD JPY since we're at a very key level on the weekly. I wouldn't surprise if we were to create new highs first before coming down. So if we do get that big move to the upside, probably stay at the market if that happens. But if we do start to see some nice rejection from this prior resistance here, then we'll be getting involved with some shorts targeting this area first. So that area here, prior resistance, now turn support, and if you get a break all the way into that 90 region and that key daily support. Up next is GBP USD. Okay, so for GBP USD this week, as you can see, not too much happened. The overall price is kind of just consolidating there on the daily, isn't really going anywhere. Overall, it's still bullish. As you can see, the trend in the market is still pointing to the upside, but we're stuck at this resistance here. We've lost a lot of momentum, and price is having a hard time creating some new highs. So on the 4H, you can see that a little bit better. We did see a nice structure beforehand, so price was making a new high, new low, new high, new low, new high. So we were getting that nice bullish structure. However, recently, as you can see here, we've got a key level resistance, price is not breaking through, and a key level support, price is not breaking through either. So for next week, we'll probably see a lot more of that continue unless we get a breakout. Of course, break to the upside might take us in that bullish trend, or break to the downside, might start to see a bit of counter trend move to the downside, a bit more retracement. But right now, overall, I'm still favoring just more continuation of the same. So another push to the downside, we'll be looking for buyers around here, targeting that resistance up there. If we get a breakout, we'll look to hold on some of my position on and take that further. But if we don't, we'll probably close my trade and potentially even open up a sell for another move to the downside, because again, we're in that range and just going to take advantage of that until we get a breakout, which of course will change my bias. A break to the upside, expecting more continuation, potentially into 1.43 up there, and a break to the downside, we'll probably aim for this support here in the market. So that'll be a nice range to take on the lower time frame. So right now, just going to follow that structure. The market is moving in a range, so looking for buys generally around this area, and looking for sells generally around that area of resistance. So next week, just more of the same sideways unless we get a breakout. And next, we're going to see what's happening with GBP CAD. Okay, so for GBP CAD this week, nothing really major to report. As you can see, price is still moving sideways. Really, nothing major happened this week. I was expecting a move to the downside for GBP CAD because we did see some nice structural changes. Price broke for this trend line, failing to break through this resistance last week as well. So I was favoring a move to the downside, maybe on the retest of that trend line. However, we found some support kind of halfway down, and we saw a move to the upside. So GBP CAD at one point was looking a little bit bullish, but as you can see, looking at the end of the week, price action is just moving sideways, slightly to the upside because we are creating higher highs, higher lows. As you can see, push, 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 and there's our higher lows there. So we are slightly in an ascending channel, but overall, I do consider this as consolidation. On the daily chart, we do have a key level just above it. Price has not tested yet as resistance. As you can see, nice support there, second, third, fourth. Gave us some big moves in the market, so it does have some weight behind it. So I'm waiting to see if GBP CAD can have one more push to the upside, come and test that daily resistance around 1.72. Then from here, we'll be looking for shorts, targeting that lower trend line. And if you get a break, then see if you can get a bigger move to the downside all the way back down to these lows, which I think GBP CAD could potentially do. Again, not in 1 week, that might take 2, but again, looking for a move into that trend line at least, and then potentially the next week can follow through to the downside. So next week for GBP CAD, looking for a move to the upside first to come and test that 1.72 area, then we'll be looking for some shorts back into that trend line, and if you can break through that back into those lows all the way down there. So bias is the downside for next week for GBP CAD. I might show you my bias if we get above 1.72, start holding a support, but don't really see that happening. So looking for those shorts for next week for GBP CAD. Okay, up next we've got GBP JPY. Okay, so for GBP JPY this week, as you can see, we've had a big push to the upside. Price just continuing this overall bullish trend that we're seeing in the markets for the past few months now. We're still very bullish here. As you can see, last week we had a bit of consolidation, came into a little bit this week, but as you can see, we had a big continuation with that Japanese yen weakness that we saw towards the end of the week. Helped a lot of the JPY pairs continue moving to the upside. So overall, still very bullish. If you take a look at the weekly time frame, we're at a very key level of weekly resistance. So as you can see, if I zoom out, you can see these are prior weekly highs all the way up here from these lows here. So very strong resistance. Did start this whole bearish trend there as well. So it does have a lot of weight behind it. I think for GBP we might see some new highs just above this area first, and then see a bigger move to the downside. So I do feel GBP might have another move to the upside first. So not really too keen on trading GBP for this week, because I feel like we might see another push to the upside first. However, if we don't, and I'm wrong, we see a move to the downside and price starts holding this area of resistance, then can look for some sells targeting that prior resistance there, which we did not get a retest of. So price could still move to the downside, come and retest that, maybe even further. So potentially could be some sells. Not really interested in buy since we're at that weekly resistance. We could see a lot of bearish momentum coming at any time really. So if we do see some rejection of this area of resistance here, could be looking for some sells into around 154,800, and if you get a break back down into those lows there. So that potentially could be happening, but be careful, because again the market is still very bullish here, and if you're going to short GBP again, you need to wait for your confirmations. Make sure you're confident in those trades, because again price action could change bullish again quite quickly. So if price starts pushing to the upside, creating some new highs on the weekly time frame, I'll probably just wait for price to calm down, wait for it to take a breather, see what's happening, and then I'll probably look to see if we can get an opportunity. But if we don't, and we start creating an area of resistance around here, struggle to break through it, then yeah, I could be looking for some nice shorts back down into 154,800, and then potentially these lows as well. And up next, we're going to take a look at gold. Okay, so for gold this week, we saw more continuation to the upside. Price is trading above our key level of support, which is around the 1860 area, holding it as support, and also our target is this 1950 area of resistance, which we're expecting price to go to. Again, price is still looking very bullish here. Not expecting to see price just straight away dart for that 1950 area. We might see some consolidation, some retrace, but again, that is the end goal for gold. Overall on the 4H, you can still see we're very bullish here, intact with this trend line here, and I think as long as that trend line does stay intact, we're going to see some more continuation for gold and see another push to the upside. Again, that is our end target. Probably won't reach that by the end of this week, but again, gold is very volatile, so again, there's nothing impossible with it. We could just see another big move going to hit 1950, and from there, if we do, we'll be looking for some shorts. But right now, gold is still very bullish. If we do see a break of the trend line and break of structure, then can be looking for some shorts back into this daily area to retest it, 1860. But as long as we stay above it, only looking for some buys, because gold is still very bullish, and I still believe it's on its way up. So for gold, target is that 1950 area. As long as we stay above that trend line, we'll change our buys to bearish. If we break through it, start creating some bearish structure, then we'll be looking to target 1860. But I do still feel like gold is still on its way up, and we can potentially see a move back into 1950 within the next week or two. And last but not least, we've got Bitcoin. Okay, so now we've got Bitcoin. So for Bitcoin, you can see overall still quite bearish for this pair. We do have this resistance. If I take that across, price is still rejecting that as well. Key level of support 30,000, which I think price might be falling towards. As you can see, we do have this break of structure here. Previous support, term resistance, price rejected that area. So Bitcoin, I feel like, is on its way down again for another move to 30,000, unless it gets back above this area and start holding it as support. Then probably see another move back up to 41k. But right now, price is still very bearish, creating lower lows, lower highs. And as you can see, we've been falling to the downside for quite some time now, and I think we're just going to see a continuation of that momentum to the downside back into around the 30,000 mark. We've got these wicks coming down, so more continuation to the downside next week. If we do come into this area, and then potentially could be looking for some buys if we do see some nice some nice rejections, and again first target that resistance, and then 41,000 after that. But right now price is looking bearish, so I feel like one more leg to the downside back into 30,000. Then if you do reject that and hold, can be looking for some buys back into 37, then potentially 41k after that. Okay, so that is the end of the video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed that, found that useful. Like always, if you have any questions, agree or disagree with my analysis, just let me know. Drop a comment and I'll make sure I'll get back to you guys. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and also check out my Telegram channel. Left a link to that in the description below. Different Forex updates there throughout the week, and you don't want to be missing out on that. So make sure you go check that out. But thanks again for watching, guys, and until the next one, I'll see you again later.